Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Fly with Trent channel for part two of my interview with both Mike and Sean from the Pro Pilot Playbook. We're very happy to have you back. In the first part of this interview, if you haven't watched it yet, we talked about the opportunity, the pros and the cons of being a corporate pilot, what the opportunities are, like the various types of corporate pilot roles, and how you should start your career off, especially if you're a career 2.0 guy like me. So in this video, we're going to pick up where we left off. The first thing that we're going to talk about is for the folks who maybe don't want to go be a CFI and they're not yet at ATP minimums, are there corporate flying opportunities available to them? And then, if so, let's also talk about some of the pros and cons of that versus the CFI path, which I could most definitely speak to.
The ATP minimums have nothing to do with becoming a corporate pilot. That whole 1,500-hour rule, the airlines, all that stuff doesn't apply to the corporate world. Now, there are some minimums for 135 stuff, and most of that is variable. I mean, it's all over the place. That stuff is mostly driven by insurance companies. To be a captain at a 135 operator, there's regulations around that. But it boils down to the op specs and basically what the insurance company says for those 135 operators. And that could be what airplane they're flying, if it's a Gulfstream or something, obviously that they're going to want some experienced guys sitting up in front of that thing.
So now for the folks that don't want to be so I chose the CFI path because in my case, my mentor had been an independent CFI, and he proved to me two important things. One, that if you're willing to hustle to find students, you can log a lot of hours as a CFI very quickly. In my case, 1,200 hours in 1 year. It was a lot of flying. I think it was even more than that. And if you're an independent CFI, instead of working for a school for, $20 an hour, you can make really great money. You can make six figures, as a matter of fact. And I have a whole training program called the Six Figure CFI that teaches people exactly how to do that. But not everybody wants to teach other people how to fly. And so, guys, what thoughts or advice do you have for folks who are maybe just a newly minted commercial pilot? They might only have 280, 300 hours, something like that. And they're younger, so they're not in a big hurry. They don't want to be a CFI. What kind of jobs we'll talk about how to get those jobs in a minute, but what kinds of jobs might be available to them if the stars align?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, first thing I want to say, Trent, is we always encourage all of our students and when I say students, like the people we coach and in our coaching program and stuff, we never say don't get your CFI. We had a video that we put out about skipping your CFI, and it was like it just went crazy. It's like one of our most popular videos. And then we've kind of been minted after that is like, oh, you don't want anybody to get your CFI. We don't think that at all. We think that's a wonderful way to gain experience for a number of reasons. We don't have to bore about that, but but I think you should get your CFI. And then if you're that person that doesn't really care to teach, how I would compare to the route that you took is, okay, yes, you made good money and you built time very, very quickly. However, the time that you built was teaching people to do steep turns and turns around a point, all that kind of stuff. If you could trade some of that time, and it was in, say, flying a Citation Excel in and out of Dulles and Teterboro, you would be much more prepared for your airline job, and you're going to do fine. I don't mean to say that in a bad way. You're going to have no problem with that. If you're a hard studier, you could be a person right out of training with no CFI experience, and if you studied hard, you could do fine in airline training. However, if you're a guy that has already flown a business jet simulator, has operated jets in the high altitude and all that stuff, it's going to come a lot easier for you. So to say, okay, yes, efficiency, if we're looking for straight efficiency and we want to make money and get this done fast, which is most people's goal, and that's fine. Right. Busting out the CFI, there's not many things that could give you that many hours.
Right. I've said it for years that, not everybody was meant to be a teacher. Or like it. And unfortunately, it is a rung in the ladder of progression on becoming a professional pilot. And that's in the course we sell, the Pro Pilot Playbook course. There's a whole module on skipping your CFI. We don't, are pushing it. No, you don't need a CFI, but that was one of the core values of our course. What it was based on is
Yeah.
the ability to do that if you want, and talk your way into the right seat of that jet and not even worry about the CFI.
One last thing I'll add, Trent, and I don't want to be too long-winded because we love to talk. On this, the guy that you're talking about, this guy, this hypothetical person or gal that's not really into teaching, they're going through the training and they're like, I don't know if I want to be a CFI. I just want them to know that is very common. I was the same way. We
Yeah.
hear that time and time again. I would say about 60 to 70% of students that are training up to be a CFI are not sure if they want to do it. But that percentage greatly flips once they actually start doing the job. You're just like, I don't know. I don't want to teach people like me and all that responsibility and all that. And then you start doing it and you're like, hey, this is a little more fun than I thought.
Right.
I'm meeting lots of people. I'm pretty good at it. I'm
Yeah.
teaching. So don't be, I just want people to know that's a mindset that we often see get
And
changed
I've
over
said for years, I don't think that I actually learned anything about being a pilot until I had to teach somebody else
time.
and
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, because every night you're driving home, looking through the books. Did I tell him the right thing? Well, now you'd be on your phone on the internet, but you're looking through the books. Did I tell him the right thing? And yep, okay. Oh man, that kind of stuff. But there's tons of low time pilot jobs that aren't teaching people too. There's a lot of mapping stuff out there. There's we got our next episode that's getting ready to drop on our podcast is a guy who was doing, he was filming these sports games. Everybody sees the Goodyear blimp, but they don't haul them blimps out for every darn sporting event there is. Usually it's some guy sitting up there droning around in circles with a very expensive camera attached to the side of a single engine airplane. And that's a low time pilot job. There are a lot of stuff out there like that. Every couple, the mapping stuff happens year round. Basically, Google contracts an air force of little single engine airplanes, and they just pick a different spot of the country, every, I don't know how many months, what their schedule is, but once they get the whole thing done, they got to start over again because 2 or 3 years have gone by and everything's built up differently.
All right. So to put a bow on that, then, so what I'm hearing is that while the CFI, especially the independent CFI path, can help you to build the largest volume of hours in the shortest amount of time and can pay pretty well for folks who maybe don't want to be a teacher, um, there is opportunities to be in the right seat of maybe some PC-12s or some corporate jets. You're probably not going to get as many hours, but the quality of the hours that you're going to get is going to be pretty darn impressive and is going to help to prepare you more for that next rung up on the ladder.
Right.
So, with that said, then let's
And
talk.
you can be chasing those type of jobs down the right seat things while you're being a CFI. We highly encourage folks to be out there beating on doors.
Absolutely. So now let's transition on how to find some of these job opportunities. Let's talk about someone maybe they're in the 3 to 500 hour range. Maybe they've taken a stab at being a CFI. They're thinking, not really digging this CFI thing too much. I'm not at ATP minimums yet. How do I find companies to start getting out there and making these applications that I'm going to need to make to create the next opportunity for myself?
Well, that one is networking. Okay,
Mhm.
and I can break this down pretty easy for the viewers. The there's an old sales adage: the more hands you shake, the more money you make. Well, that applies to corporate aviation. So,
Mhm.
why is this important? And I can tell you this in a nutshell. And this is a very, very extreme example, but friend of mine, they're onboarding a new airplane. They just bought a Global 7500. That's the Bombardier's biggest business jet. They're new. They retail for about 81 or 82 million dollars for the airplane. Okay, the type rating that's required to fly that plane, and because it's new, nobody has a type rating out there for it. You have to train a pilot. It's in the low 200,000s for a 1 month course. Okay, so this is something the employer pays. So if they hire a person, they have to go through this program and then they start flying with them. If you're going to spend that kind of money on a pilot, you better make damn sure you hire the right one. Okay. Well, what makes these operate? And that's not an entry level job, but that decision is made even at the entry level on a Citation Excel, or what would be considered an entry level corporate airplane, a beach jet. Some of those type ratings are 25, 30,000, right? And they don't want to just hire anybody. And then either they bomb out of training, that's one, or
Mm.
they get through training and they start flying with the guy and he's like a complete weirdo or something.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my God. And now they spent all this money on it and they're stuck with them. So corporate operators are huge on hiring people they know. And that's just same thing with any business. And Trent, you were in business for years. Your first choice is always the devil you know is better than the devil you don't, man. And people in an interview, they don't always, they can interview well and then you hire them and they're a totally different person. Anybody in business could say that.
Mhm.
So what you need to do is you need to network around the airport. There's not that many pilots that you think of around. It's a unique job. You need to shake hands. You need to introduce yourself, and you need to get in front of these people that operate these planes. That's the big thing in a nutshell.
Yeah, the good corporate jobs, they're not advertised on monster.com or something. As a matter of
Right.
fact, if you see a corporate pilot job on one of those job websites like Monster or whatever, they got some competitors too. That's the corporate job nobody wants. There's a reason why it's being advertised. The good ones never go anywhere. They're gone before they're even a thing, because when somebody says they're leaving, they're given, the boss, some names of guys to call and, recommendations. The one of my things in the networking, a big thing is, and my family, I've got a lot of airline pilots in my family, and one of my cousins, who was kind of my mentor coming up, he's a captain at JetBlue. He's very low seniority number at JetBlue. He's been there since the inception, basically.
Mhm.
Um, he was, back then there was no cell phones. It was all, he's like, get yourself a little black book, and everybody you fly with, from your flight instructor to the other guys that are out there learning to fly with you, get everybody's name and phone number and keep that book for the rest of your flying career. Now it's just your cell phone, but same thing. Any colleagues you worked with, students you were going through training with, flight instructors. I've got guys in here from 25 years ago that I've flown with. And when the market's down, you're going to get phone calls. Hey, who's hiring? You know anybody hiring? You guys looking for anybody? Or it's possible you'll be making one of those phone calls yourself, because if there's anything this industry is, it is cyclical. There's
Yes.
ups and downs.
And one last piece of gold I can give your viewers, Trent, and there's no charge for this, Trent. Don't worry. Uh, from from day one, you need to act as if you're being watched. Okay.
Mm,
Some of my best connections in aviation
yep.
were people. I'll give you this example. The person that I hired as my current co-captain, I met the very first day of flight school in an orientation. We shook hands before we even walked into the building for an orientation. We met in the parking lot and we shook hands. 25 years later, he's flying with me. The people around you, and you may think, oh, none of these people matter. The
Right.
first day when you start your primary training at the airport, the instructor that is teaching you, he may go on to have a great job, and if you made a positive impression on him 5 or 6 years ago when he was working on touch and go landings with you, he'll recommend you for the job. All those people around you, all those students in the break room, they all want the same goal that you are, and they're going to end up peppered all over the industry. And
Mhm.
don't show up looking like a fool, a slob, you're late for your lessons, all this stuff. You think that won't matter? That'll end up kicking you in the butt down the road.
Right. Yeah, there's so many egos in this industry. It's phenomenal. I mean, just crazy, it just goes with being a pilot. But the old adage, the old quote, long after people forget what you even look like or what you've done, they'll remember how you made them feel. And
Mhm.
just don't be going around being a doucher to everybody, basically. Be a
A lot
nice
of it's
guy.
common
Be a
sense, Trent.
great, be
That's
a
good
great
advice for life
human
in general.
being.
Yep, yep, very good.
All right, so folks, if you haven't noticed on my channel, a couple of weeks before we published this video, I actually published a video called 15 Networking Secrets for aspiring pilots. And in that video at the very end, I talk about my networking super hack. I'll make sure there's a link for that video down in the description, because it goes through all sorts of different ways that you can create opportunities for conversation and to build new relationships, and also what to say to these folks when they're complete strangers to you, and maybe you're not a networking wizard and you're a little uncomfortable and you're a little awkward. So we've got great advice for you in that video. So guys, before we wrap up this second half here, you've already both given me what I consider to be your number one networking secrets, and I thought those were both brilliant. If you were interviewing yourselves, because you know more about this stuff than I do, is there anything that we didn't touch on? Is, in other words, is there another question that I should be asking you before we wrap up to try and give our audience the most amount of actionable knowledge possible as a result of tuning in to spend this time with us?
I can think of something. I'm full of ideas, Sean.
Sure, go ahead.
My favorite quote: not doing something is doing something. You
Sure.
don't want to get analyzation paralyzation. You need to take action. And if you sit here and you watch video after video and you're thinking about your approach and what is the best flight school, and you want to do it the perfect way and the fastest way and save the most of it, you'll never get started. You'll get analysis paralysis. And just get up tomorrow, go to the airport, start your training and start your mission, and try to do the best you can. That's my best advice. What do you say, Sean?
Yeah. No, I mean, that's kind of our credo at Pro Pilot Playbook. You know, take action. Get your butt over to the airport and just start talking to somebody. That could be enough. I mean, it's enough if you go to the car dealer, you might end up driving away with a car, you know. But
Yeah.
it happens all the time.
You don't want to be sitting here 2 years from now still watching flight training videos and not taking an hour of flight training, you know.
Right.
So on behalf of the audience, guys, thank you so much for coming and donating your time to them and to me and sharing your years of wisdom. It's been a pleasure to have you here. For folks that want to learn more about your Pro Pilot Playbook, I believe that's at propilotplaybook.com or .org?
.com. Yeah.
.com. Okay, propilotplaybook.com. So that's it, everyone. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like YouTube to share it to other aspiring pilots, if you want to give that like button a little click for us, that would mean a whole lot. So thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next video soon. Take care. Bye-bye.